What if I told you there are 5 ETFs right now that have been crushing both VOO and SPMO by such a wide margin, it's almost embarrassing? I'm not talking about 1% or 2% better. I'm talking about 30%, 40%, even 79%. Year-over-year returns while the S&P sits at 15%. These aren't gambles. These are sector-specific, growth-focused ETFs positioned in the exact spaces where capital is flooding in October 2025. Semiconductors, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, growth innovation, and Wall Street institutions are quietly loading up while retail investors keep dumping money into the same old index funds. I'm Mike, this is Golden Goals, and by the end of this video you'll know exactly which 5 ETFs, why they're outperforming, the expense ratios, the holdings, and how to position yourself before this window closes. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. November 2022. I'm sitting in my apartment at midnight, laptop open, calculator out, trying to figure out where all my money went. I'd just gotten paid $2,847 after taxes. Rent was $1,600. Student loans, $340. Car payment, $280. Insurance, utilities, groceries. By the time I covered the basics, I had $37 left for the entire month. $37. And I remember staring at that number thinking, this is insane. I'm working 45 hours a week, barely sleeping, stressed out of my mind, and I have less than $40 of actual freedom. That's when I realized something. The job wasn't the problem. Having only one income stream was the problem. I needed my money working as hard as I was. So I started researching. Not crypto, not day trading, not options. ETFs, exchange-traded funds that gave me instant diversification, low fees, and exposure to sectors that were actually growing. Everyone told me, just buy VOO, just buy SPMO. Set it and forget it. And yeah, those are great. VOO gives you the S&P 500. SPMO gives you momentum stocks with a 5-star Morningstar rating and 19% annualized returns over 5 years. Both solid, both reliable. But here's what nobody tells you. There are ETFs out there crushing those returns. And if your goal is to build wealth the fastest, you need to look beyond the default options. Now, before I break down these 5 ETFs, let me be clear. VOO and SPMO are fantastic. They're easy, predictable, diversified to 500 companies, and you can sleep at night holding them long-term. But we're in October 2025. Semiconductor companies are printing money because of AI infrastructure. Quantum computing is transitioning from labs to real-world applications. Generative AI is exploding across every industry. If you're only in broad market index funds, you're getting exposure to these sectors, but it's diluted. You're getting 10% or 15% allocation when you could be getting pure concentrated exposure to the fastest growing parts of the economy. That's what these 5 ETFs do. They don't replace VOO or SPMO. They complement them. They're the growth engine that accelerates your portfolio while your core holdings provide stability. So let's break them down. So let's start with the first one, and this one's been quietly crushing it. First up is SCHG, the Schwab U.S. Large Cap Growth ETF. This fund focuses exclusively on large cap growth stocks, companies that are growing their revenues and earnings faster than the overall market. SCHG is diversified across multiple sectors, with technology leading the way, followed by communication services, consumer discretionary, healthcare, and financials. It holds just under 200 stocks, so you're getting exposure to some of the biggest, fastest growing names on the planet. NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Broadcom, Amazon, Meta. These are the companies driving the economy forward. The dividend yield is tiny at 0.37% because growth companies reinvest profits into scaling their businesses. But you're not buying this for dividends. You're buying it for price appreciation. And the expense ratio is just 0.04%. That's $4 per year for every $10,000 invested. Basically free. Now here's where it gets interesting. SCHG has returned just under 16% per year over the last 5 years and over 17% per year over the last decade. It barely got beat by SPMO in the last decade, and year to date in 2025, It's up 15.77%. In 2024 alone, SCHG returned 34.96%. In 2023, it returned 50.10%. This thing has been on a tear, and it's not slowing down. So if you're looking for a large cap growth fund with proven returns, low fees, and exposure to the best companies in the world, SCHG is the move. Now, number 2 is where things get absolutely insane. ETF number 2 is SMH, the VanEck Semiconductor ETF. And this one has a 5-star Morningstar rating, so it's as legit as they come. SMH focuses specifically on semiconductor companies, the ones that manufacture, sell, and design the chips that go into everything. Cars, smartphones, data centers, III infrastructure. Without semiconductors, the modern economy doesn't function. SMH is not broadly diversified. It holds just 26 companies, but that's the point. This is pure concentrated exposure to the semiconductor sector, and that sector has been absolutely dominating. The top holdings are NVIDIA, Taiwan Semiconductor, Broadcom, AMD, Intel, ASML, Micron, Lam Research, Applied Materials, and KLA. These are the powerhouses. The dividend yield is 0.30%, and the expense ratio is 0.35%. Now let's talk performance, because this is where SMH gets insane. Year to date in 2025, SMH is up 42.95%. Over the last year, it's up 33.62%. Over the last 3 years, annualized returns are 53.34%. 5 years, 31.10%. 10 years, 30.74%. And since inception in December 2011, SMH has averaged 26.51% per year. That's not a typo. This fund has crushed SPMO, it's crushed VOO, it's crushed almost everything. And the reason is simple. Semiconductors are the backbone of AI, and AI is the biggest technological shift we've seen in decades. If you believe AI is here to stay, SMH is a no-brainer. Now it's volatile. When semiconductors pull back, this fund pulls back hard. But if your time horizon is long-term and you can handle the swings, SMH has been one of the best performing ETFs on the market. All right, ETF number 3 is something most people have never even heard of. ETF number 3 is AOTG, the AOT Growth and Innovation ETF. This is an actively managed fund, which means there's a team of analysts picking stocks instead of just tracking an index. AOTG invests in high-quality growth companies with low marginal cost business models. What does that mean? It means companies that can produce additional units of their product or service at very little extra cost, leading to massive profit margins. Think software. Think cloud computing. Think platforms. AOTG targets industries expected to grow significantly over the next 5 to 10 years and invests in the market leaders within those industries. The fund holds 48 companies, including NVIDIA, Toast, AMD, Robinhood, Taiwan Semiconductor, and Google. There's no dividend, and the expense ratio is 0.75% because it's actively managed. That's higher than passive funds, but the performance justifies it. Year to date in 2025, AOTG is up 25%. Over the last 3 years, it's averaged just under 30% per year. And here's the kicker. In the last 6 months, AOTG has barely beat SPMO and crushed VOO. This fund is designed to outperform the market, and so far, it's doing exactly that. If you're willing to pay a slightly higher expense ratio for active management and you want exposure to innovative, high-margin growth companies, AOTG is worth a look. Now this next one, number 4, is probably the most futuristic play on this list. ETF number 4 is QTUM, the Defiance Quantum ETF. And this one also has a 5-star Morningstar rating. QTUM invests in companies involved in quantum computing, machine learning, cloud computing, and advanced technology. This is the future. Quantum computing is still early, but it's transitioning from labs to real-world applications. Companies and governments are pouring billions into this space because quantum computers can solve problems that traditional computers can't. QTUM is globally diversified with 78 holdings across multiple countries. The dividend yield is 0.67%, and the expense ratio is 0.40%. Now let's talk returns, because QTUM has been absolutely revolutionary. Year to date in 2025, QTUM is up 37.55%. Over the last year, it's up 79.10%. Let me say that again, 79% in 1 year. Over the last 3 years, annualized returns are over 30%. Over the last 5 years, over 20% per year. These returns have crushed SPMO and VOO by a very wide margin. And the reason is simple. Quantum computing is one of the most disruptive technologies of the next decade, and QTUM gives you pure exposure to that theme. It's volatile. It's speculative. But if you believe in the quantum revolution, this is how you get positioned. And number 5, this is the one everyone's asking me about lately. ETF number 5 is CHAT, the Roundhill Generative AI and Technology ETF. This is the world's first generative AI ETF, launched in May 2023. CHAT is actively managed and invests in the most innovative AI companies right now, and hopefully the most innovative ones in the future. The fund holds 42 AI and technology companies, including NVIDIA, Google, Palantir, Microsoft, Oracle, and Meta. These are the companies building the AI infrastructure, the models, the applications. Generative AI is expected to drive $7 trillion in global economic growth by 2032. OpenAI's ChatGPT hit 100 million users faster than any app in history. This isn't hype. This is a paradigm shift. Chat doesn't pay a dividend, and the expense ratio is 0.75% because it's actively managed. But the returns have been insane. In the last year, Chat has crushed both SPMO and VOO by a very wide margin. Year to date in 2025, it's up significantly. And the fund is designed to capture the companies driving the AI revolution. If you believe AI is the future, and honestly, if you don't, you're not paying attention. Chat is how you get concentrated exposure to that theme. So here's how you actually put all of this together. So how do you actually use these 5 ETFs? Here's the framework. If you're building a growth-focused portfolio and you already have core holdings like VOO or SPMO, these 5 ETFs are your accelerators. You don't go all in on any one of them. You allocate strategically. And let's say you have $5,000 to invest. You could put $1,000 into each of these 5 ETFs. That gives you exposure to large cap growth with SCHG, semiconductors with SMH, innovation with AOTG, quantum computing with QTUM, and generative AI with CHAT. You're diversified across themes, but concentrated in growth. Or you could weight them differently. Maybe you put more into SCHG and SMH because they have longer track records and lower expense ratios. Maybe you put less into QTUM and CHAT because they're more speculative. The point is, you're not replacing VOO. You're complementing it. You're adding growth engines that can outperform the broader market when these sectors are hot. And right now, in October 2025, these sectors are hot. Semiconductors are printing money. AI is exploding. Quantum computing is accelerating. These aren't trends. These are long-term structural shifts. Now let's talk about what can actually go wrong here, because it's not all upside. Now let's talk about what can go wrong, because every investment has risk. These ETFs are more volatile than VOO or SPMO. When semiconductors pull back, SMH gets crushed. When tech sells off, SCHG, AOTG, QTUM, and CHAT all drop hard. These are not set-it-and-forget-it funds. They require monitoring. Second, the expense ratios on AOTG, QTUM, and CHAT are higher because they're actively managed or thematic. 0.75% doesn't sound like much, but over decades, it adds up. Third, these ETFs are concentrated. If the semiconductor sector underperforms, SMH underperforms. If quantum computing stalls, QTUM stalls. That's the trade-off. Higher potential returns come with higher risk. So you have to ask yourself, can I handle 20% or 30% drawdowns? Can I hold through volatility? If the answer is no, stick with VOO. But if the answer is yes and you believe in these sectors long-term, these ETFs give you the exposure you need. All right, so here's exactly what you need to do next. So here's what you do. Write down these 5 tickers: SCHG, SMH, AOTG, QTUM, CHAT. Go to your brokerage. Look up each fund. Read the prospectus. Check the holdings. Look at the performance. Understand what you're buying. Set price alerts if you want to wait for pullbacks, but don't overthink it. If you believe in growth, these are the sectors driving it. And if you got value from this video, hit that like button. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 5 ETFs you're most excited about. And subscribe to Golden Goals because I drop videos like this every single week, breaking down real opportunities with real data.